Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Bartlett, Master Metaphysical Astrologer. Thank you for joining me for my May 2024 Astrological Forecast. Please note that my dates and times are approximate. They're based here in the United States, so you may need to adjust them for wherever you are on the planet. I use what's called the fourth harmonic forecast, which means that I'm using planets that are in a conjunction, square, or opposition to one another. These position of aspects or relationships between planets tend to be the ones that get the most activated, require a lot of attention to work through if we're going to get the most out of them. I want to thank Christine Cianci for the Astro Theater images that we'll be using throughout. She hand painted in oil and then made all the stages using computer graphics and software and putting it all together. Thank you so much, Christine. The key themes for May include, but are not limited to, 3 to 4 sign planetary focus. Pluto is the one planet that will be retrograde for the month. We have 2 days with double the significance. Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter change signs, with 3 of them going into Gemini and 1 opening square with Pluto. That opening square actually happens on the 1st of May with Pluto squaring Miss Venus in Taurus. Pluto is in Aquarius. They were first together back on the 17th of January of this year. So whatever was going on for you then will be something that will continue on. On the 2nd of May, Pluto, as I said earlier, is going to be going retrograde. Will be making its movement all the way back into Capricorn for its final time, and then we'll be back in Aquarius at the end of the year for the next 20 years. The other interesting thing, starting on May 3rd, we have all the planets within 67 degrees. If we take Pluto out of here in Aquarius, we've got Saturn in Pisces at 16 degrees, almost 17 degrees, and we have Jupiter at almost 25 degrees of Taurus. So there's really quite a focus on these 2.5 signs, especially when we think about it with Aries, with Mercury, North Node, and Mars. And look at this 4-planet stellium in Taurus of Jupiter, Uranus, the Sun, and Venus. This is Vulcan, by the way. We only use that with esoteric astrology. And at the end of the month, we end up with all the planets within an 83-degree range of the chart. So this is really quite a focus of energy from the fluid, expansive oneness of Pisces through the I amness or the seeking to be in Aries and that real determined presence that is that of Taurus. This is really quite a focus of energy. On the 6th of May, we have a conjunction between Chiron and Mercury. This is a really good time to discuss things that are bothering you, that have been irritating. Also might be a good time depending on if it's something that you're wanting to launch. It's a good opportunity to be able to speak if you're a healer or offering some kind of services for helping other people. This would be a good day to get yourself out there. Mars is also in the mix, as you can see. On May 13th, we have a conjunction between the Sun and Uranus in the sign of Taurus. I think this is going to have a little bit of a mirroring of the recent conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus in the sign of Taurus on the 20th of April. I think is going to be showing a little bit of the light for what it is that's going to be coming up here on the 13th. But a good time to really be sure about what you want. There could be some surprise connections, surprise opportunities, opportunities to invest maybe, or to invest in yourself, wherever Taurus is in your chart is probably the area that this is going to be affecting the most. Of course, this will also be affecting the other fixed signs of Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. On the 15th of May, we have Mercury leaving the sign of Aries, where he's been hanging out with Chiron and Mars, and moves into the sign of Taurus with the gang. It's quite a gang here. We see Jupiter, Uranus, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. This is 5 planets in one sign. This is really quite a focus. I would say actually kind of a determined slowing down of things. Of course, Uranus is in there, so it's going to be creating some kind of a shift, wanting to make things move and happen. But the rest of them, as you see, they're all hanging out on sofas. They're drinking wine. They're eating grapes. They're kind of wanting to just hang out. Remember that Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in the sign of Taurus. She's going to be appreciating the quality of things, quality of friendships, quality of relationships, quality of goods, foods, fabrics, clothing, you name it. So this is going to be really quite an interesting change as Mercury goes in there and adds a mix of being able to talk maybe in a little less fiery way than he was speaking when he was in Aries. in more that determined way with now that he's in Taurus. On the 18th of May, we have a very interesting thing happening. We have two conjunctions happening in the day. In the morning, we have Venus and Uranus in a conjunction with one another. And then in the afternoon, we have Jupiter and the Sun doing a conjunction. They're going to be happening about 5 degrees apart from one another and about 7 hours. So this is kind of an interesting step when we think about it. This is going along with these lines of what Venus and Uranus have been doing, whatever those things that need to be cleaned up in our relationships, how we're dealing with how we see our values, how we're owning things for ourselves, how we see our own resources, I think are up for insights. You may be hearing things from other people, or you may be listening to something, you hear it and you go, wow, that really makes sense to me. And you think that might be applying to you, then you might want to consider it. Then with that Sun and Jupiter together in Taurus, so there's really quite a desire, I think, for getting together with friends, having a dinner party, doing the things that you enjoy that make you feel special, making your physical body feel special. Taurus really enjoys the physical plane. Also, depending if you're a writer, I think this would be a great day to be putting out any sort of writings that you have or announcing a book that you're going to be publishing. This is also, of course, going to be affecting the other fixed signs as well. On May 20th, the sun leaves the crowded sign of Taurus and moves into the sign of Gemini, his monthly changing of signs, of course. I want to also point out that Uranus is going to be joining there at a certain point. So this is kind of like the beginning of this migration. As I said, we have these 5 planets in Taurus providing this very fixed, stable sort of a way of looking at things. Of course, though, with Uranus, we really kind of don't know for sure. But now we're moving into this more mutable, airy, thoughtful, questioning sign. And we need to remember that trining this energy is Pluto in early Aquarius. So between now and the 8th of July, when Uranus enters into Gemini, we're going to be seeing this focus changing back into this mutability again. And I think we're also going to be seeing shifts in artificial intelligence, information, all that sort of thing. I think what really feels good about this, one of the things I like about visual astrology, is that when we look at it and we see this whole crowded, 5 planets hanging out in the sign of Taurus in the vault, feeling kind of, I would think, a little bit claustrophobic. Like what a freedom it's going to feel for the sun to move into Gemini and breathe almost literally a breath of fresh air into our lives. On the 23rd of May, we have a Jupiter Venus conjunction. This is just beautiful, very special. This is a good day to treat yourself well. Again, maybe a time for investments, invest in yourself. Maybe there's a piece of jewelry you've been thinking about, or maybe you've been wanting to take your lover or spouse or partner out for a wonderful meal or experiential time out or something. I think this would be really well indicated. Also on May 23rd, we have Venus moving out of her sign of Taurus and into the sign of Gemini, joining the sun. Esoterically, Venus rules Gemini. What I like about Venus in Gemini is it seeks to unify things from this place. I really love seeing Venus in Gemini. This will be a nice shift. You can see now that wonderful house of Taurus is starting to slowly ease out and move over some of its many occupants. On the 25th of May, we have the next planet moving over into Gemini, that being Jupiter. So we have 3 planets in the sign of Gemini, giving us a little more of an expanded view, being a little bit more playful, time to go out there and take some walks, time to maybe see about doing some yoga classes, playing Wordle or Sudoku or anything else that keeps your mind going, being in contact with friends. All of those are really well indicated on the 25th. And again, remember that Pluto is adding all this hyper radioactive energy into this space as well, as each of these planets are moving into the sign of Gemini. So this is really going to be, I think, quite a magical time. I usually don't talk about the trines as much because it isn't really what tends to bother people. But I think when there are trines, which is when we have 2 planets in the same element, it provides for an ease and flow of energy that works really well. When we think about air to air, from the ideological and humanitarian Aquarian to the in the neighborhood, walk in the streets. Gemini, this really kind of expands and understands kind of like the smaller idea of how the Gemini might look at things, and then the grander idea of the Aquarian, and integrating the two. On the 29th of May, we have a Chiron Mars conjunction in the sign of Aries. This can be a little bit touchy. I think for people who have anything in the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this is going to be a placement that's going to be really activated. I think this can show an opportunity for an accident, of course, a hit to the face, literally, because it's Aries, it's Mars, it's Chiron. So anyone with a lot of planets in Aries, I think I'd be really kind of careful about your face and what's going on, especially maybe if you're playing with your animals or your dogs. There might be an unintended bite, or it actually might be just some action or something happens over the course of the day that activates a feeling of old woundedness, or the feeling that you aren't good enough. This can be really what kind of be coming up. So I think what might be really good in that regard is to point out the things that you're thankful for, point out the things that are working for you, and the ways in which you have made changes in your life to make good for yourself. Finally, on the 30th of May, we have a Uranus-Mercury conjunction. Uranus and Mercury together are octaves of one another. Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus. So this is a day that I would think it's very electrical. So I think of short circuiting, getting a short circuit at your house, having too many things plugged in. But we also, as human beings, get short circuited sometimes. We've been doing too much and we want to settle down. But the interesting thing is, normally that is how I would say Uranus and Mercury would work together. But as you can see, they're lying on sofas, they're sipping wine, they're eating grapes, and they're hanging out in the sign of Taurus. This can result in a couple of different things. One of the ways that I like to look at this sort of thing is the coming forth of new ideas of form. So we think of ideas with Mercury, new being Uranus, and form being Taurus on a very simplified basis. So this is a really great day for insights. I think this could be good depending on how your planets are set up, especially for people who have planets in the earth signs. This would be a good day probably to buy a lottery ticket, invest a little bit more in a stock exchange, something you really believe in. But also, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Are you taking some time to not be so frazzled and not get so worked up by things? Because sometimes it's when we have the stillness that we can actually allow in new information that allows us to see things from a new perspective. I want to thank you all for joining me this month. If you like what you see, please hit like, please subscribe, please leave comments and ask questions. I really love interacting with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Please also feel free to share with your friends. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Take care.